what we need to understand is that Russia is the world's foremost producer of energy. People I know are going to be screaming, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia. No, Saudi Arabia is America's foremost producer of energy. What I mean by that is back in 1945, President Roosevelt met with King Saud, and in the Gulf of Aqaba, I believe, on a USS warship, and they cut a deal that the United States would guarantee the protection of Saudi Arabia. In exchange, Saudi Arabia would allow its oil fields, oil resources to be developed in a manner which best met America's national security and energy security requirements. So Aramco, the Arab American oil company, was formed, and Aramco basically overproduced the Saudi oil fields. So what I mean by that is they built more infrastructure than the market needed. And the reason why they built more infrastructure is that based upon global energy security issues, the United States may have to call them up and say, hey, Saudi Arabia, I need you to pump up the oil production. Now, you can't do that if you didn't have sufficient infrastructure in place. But Saudi Arabia has reserve infrastructure in place. So Saudi Arabia says, yes, sir, hits the button, oil is produced. And then when the market requires less oil, we call them up and say, hey, Saudi, lower the oil production. They go, gotcha, boss. They lower it, and then that other stuff goes back into reserve. That's the role that Saudi Arabia played for the United States. They're not doing it for the world, they're doing it for us. Russia, on the other hand, is a global energy presence. They sell energy to everybody, even the United States. Wait a minute, Scott, isn't the United States one of the foremost energy producers in the world? Aren't we self-sufficient? To a degree, but I have to remind Americans that we have a whole bunch of oil refineries on the Gulf Coast that have been built, billions of dollars, specifically to handle a specific kind of crude that comes from Venezuela. But geez, we've sanctioned Venezuela. We no longer buy oil from Venezuela. How do we get gasoline if we're not, refining Venezuelan crude? Russia has a grade of crude that comes from the Ural Mountains, and we've been buying that 300, 400,000 barrels a day. How could we buy it, Scott? I mean, haven't we said we're not buying Russian oil? Yeah, but we lie. Understand that. When American politicians' lips move, they're lying. We continue to buy this oil from Russia. Now, we don't do it directly. It comes through India. It comes through third parties. That's just the reality of it. But we're buying it because if we don't buy it, we don't produce gasoline. Not all oil becomes gasoline. People need to understand that too. Oil is used for a whole bunch of different things. Different grades of oil get used for different things. Bunker oil for heating. Oil's used in industry to make plastics. Oil's used, to pave your roads. It takes a specific grade of oil with a specific refining setup to make gasoline, to make diesel. And to make gasoline, we need Russian oil. And if we cut ourselves off from Russian oil and Venezuela is not willing to turn the spigots back on, we don't get gasoline. Then what? We have to shut our refineries down to reconfigure them. How long can America go without gas? We can't. You saw what happens when the price goes up. People get a little irritated. So Biden's a liar. But the point I'm trying to make is that Russia knows energy security better than anybody in the world. So why in God's name would we sanction them targeting their energy? If you're going to call a nation a gas station disguised as a nation, that's the derogatory term that people like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and other geniuses who occupy the Senate of the United States, Joe Biden, Michael McFaul, the former ambassador, really smart people. They've labeled Russia that. But if you're going to call Russia that, you shouldn't be calling Russia that if you're the equivalent of a gas guzzling car that desperately needs fuel. And that's the only gas station in town. Because if you want to shut off business, shut down the gas station, you're going to find yourself on the highway with no gas. Engine not working. Got to walk down. Well, wake up. That's what just happened to Europe. America basically told the Europeans to slit their own throats. Sanction Russian energy, sanction Russia. And then America said, we have your back. Well, we don't have their back. What we have is their wallet. We have their wallet, you see. We don't want them to buy cheap Russian gas. Ask yourself as a European, how did we get to be so prosperous? How did it happen that we can work 4-day work weeks, have month-long vacations, have great health care, have free college. How did this happen? Cheap Russian gas. That's it. That's the only reason why. If you had to pay market value for the energy that you consumed, you wouldn't have billions, trillions of euros available to live the easy life. The easy life's over, guys. Free ride's done. Thank America. We said, stop buying Russian gas. So they did. And what's America doing? Oh, yeah, you can have our liquid natural gas. Now, we need you to build billions of dollars of infrastructure for us, and we're going to charge you 3 to 4 times the rate you were paying for the Russians. So, yeah, basically going to go bankrupt, but America's going to do good. You know, Joe Biden's getting a big thumbs up from the American gas producers. They're like, hey, thanks, Joe. Thanks for the good business. But the Europeans are paying for it, and they're paying for it in god-awful ways. Their industries are shutting down. People are unemployed. They can't afford it. Price has gone up 2, 3, 4, 5 more times the normal value. Salaries are collapsing. Inflation's rampant, all because of what the United States has done. But even then, we're not satisfied with this. You see, Nord Stream 2, we've wanted to shut it down for some time. Multiple American administrations have said Nord Stream 2 is bad. Why? Because they say Europe is overly dependent upon Russian gas. Well, let me state something very clear. Russia has never used its energy as a weapon. Never used its energy as a weapon. Why? Because the day Russia starts using energy as a weapon is the day people stop buying Russian energy. Because who wants to invest into an energy source only to have somebody then start playing games? Hey, if you don't do X, we shut down. That's how America operates. That's not how Russia operates. Russia is, we have a contract, we provide you, you pay us, it's business. Let's do it. Russia's never used energy as a weapon. But the United States needed to wean Europe off of Russian gas so that we could get Europe to buy American gas. That's purely what's going on. It's pure business. So we bullied the Germans even after $12 billion was invested. The pipeline was put in, even though we sanctioned the pipeline. We bullied the Germans. Angela Merkel, by the way, didn't bend. She said, no, this is in Germany's best interest. But the new guy, Scholz, he bent, and he wouldn't allow Nord Stream 2 to start up. So they basically closed it off. But the Russians pressured it up anyways. They filled the whole pipeline with gas. It was sitting there saying, hey, when you're cold, we got the gas right here. Hey, when you need your jobs back, we got the gas right here. All you have to do is turn the switch on. And you know who was listening? The German people. What did they do last week? The German people went to the streets protesting. And it's not even cold yet. It's not even cold yet. And they're saying, we're not happy with this nonsense. Our industries are closing. Steel mills shutting down because the big furnaces they need, you know what makes the furnaces get glowing hot to melt the steel? Gas. Lots of gas. They don't have it anymore. You can't afford it. Even if America was able to supply the liquid natural gas necessary, they can't afford it. They literally can't afford it. They have to buy all that gas, pump it up. The steel costs too much. Nobody can use it. Aluminum, shut down. All the German industries are shutting down. They don't even make toilet paper anymore. So all those germophobic Germans, see what I did there? Don't have toilet paper. Now, people say they have bidets, whatever. But, it is what it is. So the German people got fed up. They're in the streets. They're demanding that the German government turn on Nord Stream 2. Now, we know the German government, but their foreign minister infamously got up and said, I don't care what the German people say. I will support Ukraine till the dying day. She forgets that she doesn't work for Ukraine. She works for the German people. So even if she doesn't care what the German people think, German people care what the German people think. And they were starting to voice their opinions. That panicked the United States, literally panicked the United States, because the one thing that will undo all of this is when Europe wakes up to the reality that what the United States has been proposing is bad for Europe, and the United States doesn't have a guarantee. So we blew up the pipeline. Boom. Now, what will Russia do in retaliation? Because that's the question. But in order to answer that question, I had to give you all of this build-up here. Russia produces energy. Russia, their economy is dependent upon the infrastructure that is associated with producing energy and delivering energy to the market. The last thing Russia will ever get involved in, I believe, is a tit-for-tat destruction of energy infrastructure. Russia's going to repair the pipeline. Russia's going to reestablish its role as a reliable provider of energy, because at some point in time, this conflict will end. At some point in this time, Europe's going to pivot away from the United States. Europe's not going to want to have that U.S. liquid natural gas anymore. I'm just telling you right now, they're losing the appetite. Right? They can't afford it. The infrastructure is too much, and it's coming at a huge price. The United States declared war on Europe. The United States declared war on Europe. We blew up critical European energy security infrastructure for our sole benefit. We have condemned Germany, the most advanced economy in Europe, to third-tier status. When Germany comes out the other end of this winter, it isn't going to be the same Germany, and they can't rebuild. It's not like they can say, okay, turn on the gas, we'll get our industry back up. There can't be any gas because we blew up the damn pipeline. And the Germans know this now. They know it. It's going to take years for Germany to recover if they ever can. And when they recover, it isn't going to be with overpriced American liquid natural gas. It's going to be with cheap Russian gas coming from Nord Stream 2, because the Russians, instead of retaliating, are simply going to rebuild the pipeline, put themselves back into business, and say, we're the reliable provider of energy.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm asking you, Scott. So it'll be repaired. And this time, Russia obviously didn't stop it. So that's what I'm asking you. In the future, is Russia going to be able to adjust to the circumstances and prevent it in the future? How vulnerable are they going to be moving forward?
First of all, this is European infrastructure. It's not Russian infrastructure. It's Russian gas. Russia just lost literally $100 billion worth of gas. They had a whole pipeline full of gas. Oh, Europe. Joe Biden, I'm Mr. Paris Accord. First priority, I can't do exit. First priority when we come into office is we're going to sign the Paris Accord. Greenhouse gas emissions, got to bring them down, got to do all this good stuff. Dude just blew up a pipeline that's blowing methane into the atmosphere. This is a ecological disaster. The Swedes and the Danes and the Germans, anybody in the Baltics have to understand the amount of sea life that's being slaughtered because of this, the pollution that's undergoing. They're pumping the equivalent of, I forget what it was, 5 million automobiles worth of emissions per day into the air from this. So Joe Biden isn't just a lying sack of manure. He's an international terrorist. He's ecological terrorist. He's a man who has destroyed all the sacrifices the Dutch farmers had made. If I'm a Dutch farmer right now, I literally go and I just say, we're done with America forever. Because, the Dutch farmers have had to make every sacrifice in the world so that the Netherlands could meet its greenhouse gas emission limits and all this kind of stuff. It just got blown away. Everything Europe's been doing for the last decade, blown away because Joe Biden blew up your pipeline. I mean, it's ridiculous.
All right, so Russia is a stakeholder, and the European countries that benefit from the gas are also stakeholders. Can they all prevent it in the future? That's my question.
Well, I mean, what do you mean? How do you prevent it?
I don't know. I'm just trying to get a sense of
a pipeline. Look, this is the thing. Energy infrastructure is the soft underbelly of every society. That's why the Saudi Arabians and the Iranians and the Israelis and all that stuff aren't going to war right now. And this is why Trump didn't, remember when the Iranians shot down the American drone? And Trump said, I got to bomb them. And his generals went, no, you don't. Because the second we bomb Iran, Iran destroys all of the energy infrastructure in the Middle East, and the Middle East no longer produces energy because you can't protect it. So the idea is, since everybody needs energy, we all respect the fact that we don't blow up energy projects, except unless you're the United States. Then you don't give a damn about anybody because we're poisoning our own selves by fracking, oil and getting fracking. Everybody calls this, natural gas. It's not. It's fracked gas. You get it by breaking open the soil, poisoning water wells, whatever you want to say. But we're doing that. We can supply our own, but now we're saying we want to supply the world. But so we're the ones that have basically violated, a golden rule. Those who need energy do not destroy the energy infrastructure of those who need energy, because they can come back and destroy yours. There's nothing you can do to protect a pipeline. There is nothing you can do to protect a pipeline. It's too damn long. Anybody can knock it off at any time if they want to. It's just that nobody's stupid enough to do it, because the moment you go down that route, Look what it did. You literally, by hitting that pipeline, you have condemned Germany and Europe. You're literally, you murdered people. People are going to die this winter because of this. Hey, Joe, you're a murderer too. Don't tell me about looking at Putin in his eyes and calling him a murderer. You're a murderer, and I'm looking in your eyes right now. I mean, come on. Why aren't people outraged by this? I think people are, but Americans should be outraged by it because Joe Biden literally turned us into the worst nation in the world. Ecological terrorists, energy security terrorists, liars, and we call ourselves allies. Who would want to be our ally? No one should ever be our ally anymore. Nobody should be our friend anymore. We're the worst friends in the world. We blow up the energy that you need to survive, and we don't care about you.